Bengals fans, what's going on? It is Stone Shields on hand once again for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. On this edition of the show, we're going to dive into whether or not Evan McPherson will receive a contract extension before the 2023 season. Even though he's a kicker, he's certainly a very, very valuable asset to this Bengals team. So we'll get to that in a second. But first, if you want to keep Evan McPherson in Cincinnati long term, make sure you spam 2 in the comment section right now. I certainly want him to be sticking around. Like I said, he's really been a huge part of this team despite being a kicker. I know I want to see him in Cincinnati long term. Show that you do too by spamming those 2s in the comments. Like I said, Evan McPherson's really been a big part of this team for the first 3 years of his career. He's been a fan favorite, number one. When you go to a Bengals game, you see a bunch of number 2 jerseys really all throughout the stadium. And I can't remember the last time a kicker was kind of a star like that. Certainly not the case in this city ever before. And, he kind of reminds me a lot of number 1 golfer in the world, Scotty Scheffler, in a lot of ways, right? He seems kind of unassuming and laid back, nice guy, regular guy, normal human being. But when he's out there on the field, he competes, and he's really, really, really good at what he does. Let's take a look at what Jay Morrison said in regards to a potential Evan McPherson extension. He said, and just as the Bengals had a framework in place for Karras with the 3-year, $18 million deal he signed in 2022, there is a template for a McPherson extension that just needs a couple of signatures. And just as Chase has Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson as a negotiating target, McPherson has Ravens Justin Tucker. It's a textbook case of when, not if, the Bengals will extend the 3rd most accurate kicker in franchise history. As Jay Morrison alluded to, there's a lot of interest in both sides, right? McPherson clearly has voiced the fact that he wants to stay here, and if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, he clearly has done everything you would want out of a kicker, so you're going to want to be able to lock him up long term. Taking a look at some of his numbers right here, didn't miss a single extra point last year in the 2023 season, which isn't certainly as common around the league as it used to be, with the extra point being moved back a few years ago. And he's got a massive leg, right, a long of 56 yards. He's really a guy that, anywhere, you just want to get past midfield with a guy like Evan McPherson, really. He can boot it probably up to 65 yards. Is that crazy to say? I think he can certainly do that. I believe as long as like 59 for the Bengals so far, but it's only a matter of time before he gets a 60-yard field goal through the uprights for Cincinnati. And honestly, this is kind of priority 1B for me. Again, it seems crazy saying that as a kicker, but I would say 1A certainly is Jamar Chase, right? But, as time goes on, I'm more convinced that that's probably not going to happen until next offseason. So then, McPherson's a guy that could go in there and potentially get himself an extension this offseason. And elite kickers are weapons. Last year he wasn't as good over 50 yards. He was the year before, and then the year before he actually kind of struggled a little bit in terms of the 40 to 50-yard mark. But when you think about what the Bengals, were able to accomplish, not last year, but the 2 years prior to that in their playoff runs, McPherson was a massive part of that. They were playing in a lot of close games, and, obviously the kicking game is really important in really close games, and he seemed to always come through in big moments. And, you want to get a guy like him secured because you don't want to go back to the Randy Bullock days, right? We all remember Randy Bullock. Look, he was good from the short field goal perspective, pretty good with extra points for the most part. But when he would run out there on the football field and the camera would pan to him, you'd be like, is that our franchise kicker, or is that the guy that gave me my sausage McMuffin at the McDonald's drive-thru this morning, right? He didn't, just the look on his face, sometimes you're like, does this guy even think he's going to make it? Because he certainly doesn't look like he thinks this kick is going to go through. Sorry for, the strays there, Randy, but, that it's just realistic to think that if you have an elite kicker, you want to keep him on your team, right? And there's really not a ton around the league. There's really only a handful of guys, and I think Evan McPherson certainly fits into that mold of people. Now it's your chance to get interactive in the comments section of today's video with the pin comment today. Will the Bengals extend McPherson this offseason? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let us know what you think down in the comment section. All right, another thing we're going to dive into today is a potential Orlando Brown trade. All right, let me just start off by saying, one, it's not going to happen. But there's been some, reports out there on the internet, so it's something that we're going to, discuss a little bit here. Gridiron Heroics suggested the Bengals should trade left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. Let's see what they said in their article here. They said, this team could shop Brown around and likely pick up at least a first-round pick for the talented tackle. ... Brown simply hasn't shown the ability to justify his lucrative contract. Well, I mean, which is it? Is he bad or is he worth a first rounder? I'm very confused at what they're trying to say here. If he is bad, which I wouldn't say he was bad last year, but he certainly wasn't what the Bengals are paying for, right? He's not going to be worth a first-round pick. So the idea of thinking you could trade him for a first-round pick is simply ludicrous. But taking a look at what he did last year, obviously these numbers are not good enough for what they're paying him, right? They're paying him around $16 million, which is a lot of money. It's certainly a position that they needed to get fixed in that tackle spot, protecting Joe Burrow, so they threw a lot of money at it. Year one, it didn't work out, but I remain confident that he can get back to form because it's kind of an outlier this 2023 season. If you take a look at what he did in Kansas City, obviously being a part of a world championship, and with Baltimore before that, he was much better, allowing less sacks, right, less hits on the quarterback, less hurries, was better in the run game. 57.1 run block grade last year is really not what you're looking for out of your left tackle. So, I remain confident that he will be able to get back to form. As for why he wasn't so good, I don't know. New place, obviously, new team, new teammates, new schemes perhaps. But I certainly think he will get back to form. And one thing I do like about him is he's always available for the entirety of his career. He really doesn't get hurt at all. He's really out there for pretty much all of those snaps. So we're not going to ask you if you think that he's going to get traded, because we know he's not going to get traded. But I will ask you, do you think he will bounce back in 2024 with the Cincinnati Bengals? Type A if you believe he will, or type B if you believe he will not. We spent a lot of time on yesterday's show discussing Amarius Mims. And, we're going to talk about him a little bit more today because he remains unsigned, which isn't, it's not a massive red flag or a sound the alarm thing by any means, but it is something that's worth noting, and we'll dive into that in a second. But first off, I want to give our friends at Fanatics here a quick shout-out. And speaking of Amarius Mims, his rookie jerseys are available now and have been for quite some time, and you can get them if you visit the link below. That is chatsports.com/Amarius Mims. That'll be in the comments and the description of today's video, so make sure you go get your Amarius Mims jersey. Certainly think he is going to be a hit for Cincinnati, so go show some love and get those jerseys. All right, so there's still some guys that were drafted in the first round that have yet to be signed. And we're looking at three right here, three quarterbacks that have not been signed: Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., and J.J. McCarthy. It just happens, right? When you're going through, the off-season workouts and whatnot, some guys just sign at different times. We've seen this forever in the NFL. At some point, all of these guys are going to get done. No one, you haven't really heard of a rookie that's going to hold out. I don't even know if they would get fined if they did that. It's something that you don't have to worry about. Eventually, these three guys will be signed as well. Taking a look at some of the other guys in the first round that have yet to be signed that aren't quarterbacks, you got Rome Odunze, Dallas Turner, Amarius Mims, and Ricky Pearsall. So obviously, Amarius Mims has not been signed yet. And, as for why this hasn't happened, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's probably an offset language dispute, right? And offset language relates, for the record, I really didn't know what offset language was. So I was like, let's try to figure this out and explain, why Amarius Mims has not yet signed. So offset language relates to what happens to a player's salary if he's cut before his rookie contract ends. So, as we know, if you're a first-round pick, it's 4 years, fully guaranteed, with a fifth-year option. But if you were to get cut, let's say, in your fourth year and the team owed you $4 million, if you had offset language in that deal, you could possibly go sign for somewhere else, and that team wouldn't have to pay you the full amount. And if there wasn't offset language in the deal, you get cut, and that team still has to pay you $4 million if that's what you were expected to be earned. So it's a little confusing and a little hairy there a little bit. But the bottom line is most of these guys don't have to really worry about this, because if you're a first-round pick, team's not going to quit on you that early, right? They're probably going to give you a chance to work through your rookie deal and see what happens. But this is probably what Amarius Mims and his team are dealing with right now, probably trying to get rid of some offset language that the Bengals have in his contract at this point. Again, not something I'm worried about whatsoever here. He will be signed in due time. No reason to worry about that whatsoever. And Bengals fans, make sure you are subscribed here to our channel, Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports. Got plenty of exciting things coming up and almost daily videos as well. So you don't want to miss that. Hit that sub button right now. As youtube.com/BengalsTV.